Alright, hello everyone. Welcome back to another day of the Woodpecker method. Did take the day off yesterday. I had to catch a flight in the morning, so did not have the chance to stream yesterday, but we are back at it here today. We are going to be picking up on puzzle number, I think it's 751, is where we will be picking up on here. We are 20 puzzles through the kind of final intermediate chapter. Then there will be an advanced, a very final, let's say, advanced chapter after that. I think we have a total of about 360-ish puzzles left. It's about 230 from here, 140, maybe it's 370-ish, somewhere in there. Yeah, we're going to get right into it and get clicking right along here. So let's go for it. Hit the learn button. Hey there, Torty Ritz. Nice to see you in the chat box. Alright, white to move on this one. There is a undefended rook on g1. Let's see, what do we do about this? Feels like it should be some kind of d5 move here. If we can open up the center of the board, it looks extremely dangerous for black, I would say. So if d5, if pawn takes d5, let's say e takes d5, probably some kind of queen f5 check looks very bothersome. King goes to c7, you can play rook e7 check, and then queen d7 checkmate. If king goes to d8, probably queen f6 check, rook invades, and you start attacking. I think black's in big trouble there, generally speaking. And if the c-pawn takes instead, probably in that version of things, that one's probably a little bit more tenacious, but queen to b5 check, and then some kind of c6 move. I think in a game I'm probably just playing d5 without a ton of calculation, as long as I'm recognizing that I'm at least winning a pawn back or opening up the king after d5. So I think we go for this. I think it was queen b5 check was what I was leaning towards. Pawn to c6 is also strong because the king would have to take. That might be even better. That is almost certainly better. Yeah, so pawn to c6. If the king doesn't take, we take the pawn on b7 with a big attack. If the king does take, queen to b5 check. And then inevitably we'll be able to check on b6 or c5, and we'll fork the king and the rook on g1. So I think it's c6, check. And yeah, it says white picks up the rook on g1, king d6, check, take the rook. Okay, so it doesn't involve the rook on g1, but took a couple of moves to get us there. Alright, black's move on this one. I think we can go knight to a5, and I think white has a hard time guarding the c4 pawn because of the pin on the b file. If they take the knight on e7, we take back, and then the pawn is still under fire. Even if they play pawn to c5, we just take it, again, because the b pawn is pinned. And if they try to use the queen to protect the pawn, then we'll inevitably pick up the, I think queen to c2, for example, we'll actually just go ahead and take the pawn on c4, and then we're going to be up one pawn. Okay, knight to d4, I think we're just taking on c4 first. And yeah, white's in big trouble. Queen is hit, knight on d5 is hit. Pretty much white has to take on e7, but then we will continue to be up a pawn because the queen will still be hit. Okay, good. If this rook was gone, queen e5 would be a fork, so feels like some kind of attack. What will this be called? Clearance sacrifice. Hey Shelton, how much fun are you having doing the Woodpecker method? It's been pretty enjoyable so far, honestly. There are a few gripes I have with the book and course overall, but generally speaking, it's been pretty good. I've had good improvement in my blitz games recently on my anonymous account, so I think that it could be contributed to having worked on the Woodpecker method for the past about week and a half or so. So yeah, no, I've been enjoying it. I think it's been going well. All right, what are we doing with this one? This rook feels like we need to move it, but I'm not seeing anything jump out with moving the rook. I mean, there is rook h5 hitting this. Pawn takes, check. King moves, take the rook, but that's kind of just a trade of pieces. That doesn't feel like I'm winning anything. Could go d5, I guess, and if bishop takes, then queen to d4, and it's hard to guard the bishop and deal with the discovered check. That looks pretty good. I'm not super familiar with the book. Is it puzzles only, or are there explanations like chess tactics from scratch? Pretty much it's a puzzles only book. It's broken up into, like, there's an easy chapter with I think like 200 something puzzles. Maybe it was exactly 200. There's an easy chapter with 200 puzzles. There's a lot of puzzles in the kind of intermediate category of things. Probably about 800-ish puzzles in the intermediate category. And then there's an extra 145, I think, in the advanced chapter. So it's essentially a workbook, just with all 1,128 puzzles. That's the amount that are that's in the book. There's explanations for, like, you know, why the moves were played once you like see the answer, but there's not any, let's say, like, oh, this is how you look for tactics or how you solve puzzles. It's more like you solve the puzzle and then you get the feedback on the puzzle, is the idea. So I would say if somebody was going to, like, if they were asking if this is a good book to solve or work through, I would probably say that you want to have, let's say, like a starting point of already knowing all of the basic tactic patterns. Like, you need to know pins, skewers, forks. This isn't going to teach you those things. It's going to give you lots of exercises to solve about those things, but you need to know them in the first place, and this isn't going to teach you what a pin is or what a fork is or stuff like that. So in that regard, probably not a book for beginners, but probably more so a book for intermediate advanced players, I would say. I'm leaning towards d5 here. I don't think black has to take the pawn, but it generally feels good to gain a little more space, block off the bishop from protecting f7, and then kind of see what happens after that. Nothing else is immediately jumping out to me. So I think we push queen d4, and yeah, we get the double threat. Essentially, if black doesn't take, let's say they play queen f6, then we can play rook h5 apparently, because bishop d4 is a big threat. Some kind of passive move allows us to continue attacking. So yeah, d5 is the way to go. This one feels like rook takes f7, king takes f7, queen takes g6. If king e7, we have queen g7 and bishop g6 checkmate. And if king f8, that one's a little harder to break. I think we have queen takes h6. If king g8, queen h7, queen h8, queen g7, and then bishop g6 again. If king e7, it's queen g7 and bishop g6. If king e8, I think bishop to b5 check is actually important. But then king f7, queen h7, king f8. Oh, and then you still zigzag there. Okay, yeah, so it is rook takes f7. Check. Check. And it says black resigned due to king e8, bishop to b5 check. It would be, I think it's pretty important to see the bishop b5 check. I'm a little surprised that the puzzle cuts off here. I don't think, I think you have to see bishop b5. Oh, I guess you technically don't. Queen takes e6 also wins. But yeah, bishop b5 is the most precise for sure. And then you get something like this eventually, which is checkmate. All right. Let's see. Feels like bishop d5 check. Rook takes, check on f7, then take on d5. Then we have a queen versus rook and bishop, but knight f7 check is annoying, and I think we're in good shape there. Currently it's 2 rooks versus a queen. I think bishop d5 puts us ahead. If they don't take the bishop, then we play knight f7 check and discovered checks and stuff like that. So I think you start here, this, and then, you know, black's in pretty big trouble. Let's see. Strategically speaking, my first instinct is to take on f4. That's my first instinct from a strategic standpoint. I don't think I want to retreat the knight on e4. That feels very, very passive. Like, you move, you just lose a pawn on e6 anyways. Yeah, rook takes f4. I guess you could also consider knight takes f2, king takes f2, and then something there, but nothing is jumping out to me at that point. The downside of rook takes f4 and then queen takes f4 is white can play bishop takes e4. We take back, the knight moves. We are down the exchange, right? So may not be the clearest scenario, especially if they're going to take the e4 pawn afterwards. E5 is also a move to potentially consider, but we can't do it right now because of knight takes d5, and then we lose a piece. I guess we could consider g5. If bishop takes e4, we take on f4. If the knight moves away, let's say like knight h3, then we have g4 and we win a piece, I think. If the knight goes to e2, whoops. If the knight goes to e2, we take the knight. If the knight goes to g2, then we might be able to take f2 and then play g4. Maybe it's g5, actually. It feels risky, but we need to do something pretty drastic here because I think strategically speaking, we're in bad shape. So it's either going to be taking the knight or g5. I think it's g5. And then, yeah, I guess we could take the bishop because then we're attacking 2 knights at once, actually. So we take the bishop and then we... Oh, but then he would play knight takes... Sorry, he would play knight takes g5. So we have to take the knight on f4, I think. Yeah. Okay, let's see. g5 is the only move that is not clearly worse for black. It says rook takes f4 is a common sacrifice in the French, but it would have been better to abstain from it. Here white is better. And okay, so apparently after the bishop retreated, we take on g3, and I'm going to guess that white is still better, but black is not completely lost or anything like that. It's a pretty rough looking position for black in the first place. Yeah, so g5, bishop takes e4, take on f4, bishop moves somewhere, take on g3, h takes g3, h takes g3, queen f7, apparently. It would have been nice if the puzzle it would have been nice if the puzzle continued this way, because it makes you find kind of one further move. I guess f takes g3 is necessary, and then now you can go queen g7 to target the d4 pawn. Yeah, it's a tough position for white, or tough position for black, but if black plays precisely, they can kind of hang in there. Okay, let's keep going. Feels like a knight takes g3 sacrifice. Or rook h6 first. Oh, wait, our queen's... Oh, yeah, our queen's hit, sorry. So we can't... Rook h6, we lose the queen. That's obviously bad. Knight takes g3 at least attacks the queen. So we're either needing to retreat the queen, which doesn't feel fantastic, or we need to take on g3 to kind of one-up or equalize white's threat. So I'm highly assuming it's knight takes g3, pawn takes g3, queen takes g3. But then there is rook takes f5. And then if we check, the king goes to f1, and it feels like white's actually doing totally fine there, and white's ahead material. Maybe rook h6, you're threatening rook h1, but then the king goes to the f1 square. The more I look at it, the less I like knight takes g3, but if it's not knight takes g3, really the only other move is queen h5, which feels very... just feels very passive. And you could take h2, maybe? Queen takes h2, king takes... You can take on g3 after that. Maybe knight takes g3 there is actually a bit dangerous. I don't feel like you're getting enough for the queen. Queen goes to d1, like you can... Oh, there's knight e2 check? Hold on. But then there's rook f4, then rook h3. Maybe you are getting enough for the queen. Huh. Maybe that does actually end up working. Okay, I think it's queen takes h2, and then I think it's knight takes on g3. If bishop takes, the king goes to g1, and we don't really have any follow-up. So I think we're taking with the knight. Queen to b5. That would not have been the move I thought about. But I think you... we can check on h6. We can play knight e2 check first. So like knight e2 check, if king h1, rook check, bishop has to block, rook takes, king g2, rook h2 is checkmate, which is very nice. What white is going to do is they're going to play rook f4. But then we can play, like, I don't know, knight takes f4. We can play rook h6 still. We can, you know, I think we... I don't think we want to take the rook, because after king g1... We don't want it... First of all, I don't think we want to take the queen. White takes here with check and then picks up the bishop. I don't think we want to take the rook, because after king g1, our attack kind of fizzles out pretty quickly. I think it's knight e2 check. Or it's rook h6, then knight e2. But then he runs away. I think it's knight e2 check first, yeah. It says white is forced to give black back the queen, leaving white with the winning position, or black with the winning position. It does say that this also wins. Oh, okay, the rook is protected. This is probably simpler, but I guess you could say less decisive. I'm curious what the finish of the game here would be. Oh, he has to play queen takes b8, and then black is going to be up, well, let's say rook h6 check, then take this, then take this, and the rook on c1 is still hit, and black is ahead a couple of pawns in this position. I guess if the king tries to run... I thought white could play rook f4, maybe. It says bishop takes, pawn takes, g3 check. I was missing this g3 idea. But rook h6 is still strong. But you need to see g3 here, I guess. You can even do this and finally take the queen. So okay, there's lots of wins, but you do want to play queen takes h2 in this position. Okay. Oh, this is Kasparov of Karpov. I think I've seen this one. I think it's queen takes d7, rook e8 check, bishop e4 check, and then rook takes d7. You get 2 rooks for the queen, but those rooks coordinate really well in that position. So I think it's this. And yeah, you take the rook on d7, and then your rooks are really, really strong, and black's in big trouble. I think you can take f7, check on d6, and take a6, but we are down a piece to start with, so that may not be the best course of events. Knight f5 is also a move worth considering, because pawn takes, queen h6, king e8, rook check, knight blocks. You can take a6 at some point, you can check on c6 at some point. That's actually looking pretty good. And if they don't take the knight, there's queen h6 check and queen d6 check. Like knight here, queen e5 is reasonable. Queen h6, I guess king e8. And then I get, oh, we don't have rook e3 because the rook's pinned. So what if we start with rook e3? I wonder, can we go rook e3 first? Then queen f6 seems kind of annoying. Maybe it is just knight takes f7, check, take the bishop, and then you have like all these attacking ideas on the king side. I think I'm going to go with it. Okay, so it's not knight f7. Knight f5 is the other move. There is rook takes g6, but I think queen e5 pins the queen. Oh, but you're hitting the bishop, I guess. So it's probably, oh, sorry. So it probably is just rook takes g6. You hit the, you threaten mate and you threaten the bishop. I think that's pretty clear cut. You trade the queens, you take the bishop. The tricky part is then he pushes the pawn. You come down to stop that. There is also check, check, but then no more checks. The queen is pinned. It's kind of annoying. Check, check. Oh, hold on. So it's check here, d6, check, I think. If queen takes d6, knight f5 check, and you take the queen. And if king takes d6, then you have knight takes f7 check, and you win the queen. And if king to e6, then there's rook to e8 check, and you win the queen. Okay, so I think it's this, then d6. There we go. Okay, and white picks up the queen after this. Okay, yeah, so rook takes g6, and then it's this, this checking sequence. What are we doing here? I mean, c7 feels pretty good. Could also play knight h6 first. There's knight d6, which is rather annoying. So c7, I would assume that the rook blocks. If white tries to take, or if black tries to take the pawn, we take back. If they take the knight, we take the bishop, and then we're up a piece. And if they try to hit the rook, we counterattack the bishop, and we're still ahead a piece. I think they have to block the pawn. And then what do we do there? We have a lot of different ways of discovered attacking the rook. But at any move of the knight, they're going to play rook takes c7. Not really a great way to move the knight and attack anything. You can move the knight and hit the rook, but then the rook takes the pawn on c7. I see a way to win a pawn, but it's not really winning a pawn. You're kind of just trading a pair of pawns. Yeah, I don't... Oh, hold on. Maybe it is winning more than a pawn. So I'm looking at knight h6, knight d6. But instead of moving the rook, I think we can take f7, attacking their rook. If the knight takes back, then we play c7 and promote. We win the exchange there. If they take our knight on... that's bad arrows. If they take our rook on b7, we take their rook. They take back. They're up a piece momentarily, but after c7, there's no way to stop both things, promoting the pawn or taking the knight, without playing the move rook to a8. And then we can go ahead and either take the bishop first or take the knight, then the bishop, and we're up a piece. So I think that's it here. We go here, take, push, and we are winning here. It says rook to d7. It says bishop to d7 is most precise. It says rook to b8 is also good. And again, you're going to promote and win a piece here. The game continued with... Oops. Let's go back here. The game continued with some kind of promotion, and I think there's an extra pair of rooks on the board somewhere. But yeah, that's the way that white got things done. So yeah, knight h6 is very, very important. Apparently you could go c7 and eventually get this fork, but black has drawing chances. But yeah, so it's knight h6 is the key here. And then you take on f7. Okay, I like that. I like that puzzle. That's a good one. Knight takes f7, and then rook to c7 check, and then you take the bishop, and then you're just up a pawn at the very least. Oh, he played against Lars. Lars Bohansen. This is a grandmaster who, for quite a while when I was living in Florida, he was playing a bunch of events in Florida. Definitely I was not around in 1988, but I played against Lars like 6 or 7 different times. And I don't think I ever beat him, but I think we drew 4 times or 3 times or something like that. And he's a grandmaster. I don't think I ever beat him though, but we drew a number of times. Anyways, little tidbit of knowledge. So yeah, I think it's knight takes f7 and rook c7. Yeah, let me take the bishop. Okay. Bishop takes f3, knight takes f3, queen takes b2 check, and then we take the rook. Yeah, again, one of the only 2 gripes I've had with the course is that sometimes the sequencing of puzzles feels kind of off. Like some of them feel very easy in the intermediate chapter, and then other ones feel a lot more difficult. That's one gripe. And then the other gripe is that there's quite a lot of positions and puzzles where there's like multiple moves that are good. But other than that, the book's been very good, in my opinion. What do we do here? Bishop to b5, deflecting the queen from the g3 pawn. If the queen takes, we get checkmate. If the queen moves, we eventually take on f1, and then we're up the exchange, I think. I guess we just take the rook, right? Okay. What to do here? Oh, this one is interesting. I think it's f5. I think. Bishop goes back, and then e5. You take advantage of the pin. And then whenever this bishop moves, then we play e4, and we fork the rook and the bishop. We can't start with e5 because they would take and the rook's defended. So I think you play f5 first, then e5, and then take the rook. Okay, cool. So rook, they're threatening to take our rook. And our bishop. We have this check, but after this, rook goes back to f1. I don't see the knockout blow there. This bishop is terrible. What are we doing? If we try to take on G2, white takes on E2, I think. If we take on D2 or F2, like if we take on F2, they take back, and I don't really see a knockout blow follow-up or anything like that. So what are we doing on this one? If we take on D2, the queen just takes, and I don't see it the follow-up. I don't think we just trade rooks and move the bishop to safety. I would be pretty happy with black's position still, but that doesn't feel like the answer, let's say. Feels like there should be something more decisive. Oh, wait, is that it? Maybe. Hold on. So now I'm looking at rook check, knight takes, rook takes. Rook goes back. But then we have queen f3 since the rook on f1's pinned. He takes our rook. We check on h1, king f2, take on h2, king e3, take on g3 as checkmate. If king goes back to f1, we check on h1, then check on f3, take g3. I think that's it. Hold on, I just want to double check here. So check, take, check, block, rook, queen f3, take, check. We can't mate on g2 because this rook covers it still. So check on h1, king f2. I don't think we can do g2. Oh, wait. Oh, that's just faster. Queen g2, queen f3 is mate because this d4 square is covered. Oh, okay. Okay, that's definitely it then. Here, here, here. Check, check, checkmate. Little staircase there with the queen at the end. Queen h1, g2, then f3. Apparently, queen to d3 is the only move to prevent mate, but we can still get a big attack here. Okay. This feels like h5, and I think white just crashes through. Because if the pawn is captured or the g6 pawn disappears, then the f5 knight is definitely a goner. Okay, here I think you can just double up on the knight. Or bishop e4, or take on g6. I think you can kind of do anything here, quite honestly. I'd probably double up rooks first. Yeah. I don't see why you couldn't take the pawn first either, but I would probably double up the rooks to begin with. Yeah, doubling up is best, but taking a g6 is also still much better. The reason you might want to double up instead of taking the pawn is because you want to make sure that the knight can't move at that point. If you take the pawn and then double up, the knight can move, the knight can move without allowing the rook to take on g6. Do you plan on doing other speedruns with different openings? Yeah, I do plan on doing that. I'm a little bit up in the air about which openings. I mainly did the speedruns with the 3 openings that I have on the channel, the French Defense, the Ready Nimzo Larsen, and the Binko Gambit, which I didn't finish the Binko Gambit because when I was playing games, people just weren't playing d4 on move number 1, so I will have to revisit that one and try to finish that on a different cycle somehow. But yeah, the reason I picked those 3 openings was because I had I have chessable courses on those 3 openings. So it was pretty much a given that those were 3 openings that were good to choose. I don't have other personal courses on other openings on Chessable, so any other openings I picked would kind of just be either what the viewers want to see or other openings that I just enjoy playing myself. I've had a lot of I've had a fair amount of people personal students included that want me to do like a Carocon speedrun. And I've played the Carocon for a number of years, so I think that would be fun. I could also do like a Queen's Gambit Decline speedrun, a Semi-Slav speedrun. I could do like a Sicilian speedrun. I could do like E4 speedrun, D4 speedrun, Knight F3 with G3 speedrun. I can do lots of different speedruns. A C4 speedrun, I could play that as well. I've played C4 for a fair amount as well in tournament games. I've played pretty much everything as white, so I could do a speedrun on almost any white opening. And as black, I could do a speedrun on lots of stuff against E4, and then against D4, a little bit less stuff. I'm a little more narrow against D4, but I still have played plenty of stuff there as well. But yeah, I guess it's kind of... I might make a community post here on YouTube just to see what other openings people are interested in. So that might be the way I do it. I guess if I had to pick for myself right now, like if I was to start the speedrun today, which I'm not, if I had to start today though, I'd probably do like Carocon, probably Queen's Gambit Declined. Those would be both for black, and then for white, I could honestly go any of the directions. I've played a lot of E4 recently, but I've played a ton of Knight F3, G3 historically. I've played a fair amount of C4. Probably a little rustier on D4 nowadays, but I might leave the white opening up to the viewers' preference or something like that. Okay, let's solve this one. I think I want to play some kind of rook h8 check, queen check on the h-file, and then eliminate the knight, but I can't check on h5. What I can do, as far as I can tell, though, is I can check, but then I check on h1, and then I take the knight, and then how does black stop checkmate on h7? They'd have to play g6, but then I still mate on h8. So I think we do actually go for this check, but we don't have h5 available, and you also don't want to take the knight first, because then the queen will block the h-file eventually. You want to check here first, then eliminate. And there's no way black can stop the mating threats here. I guess in the game, black has queen takes g3, and I guess black doesn't get mated, but white is still in good shape here for sure. Okay. I'm assuming some kind of knight f7 and then rook e8 check. Looks pretty good. I guess if I take, maybe there's queen b7, but then I have knight to d8 check and I take the queen. So I think I need to take the rook first. If I go rook e7 first, queen to b7 becomes kind of annoying. So I think I need to... No, you don't. Interesting. Oh, you can play rook e8 to begin with. That's more clear-cut, right? I think this is more clear-cut. And then you can take f7 since the rook is pinned. And then I think... I guess we're down a fair amount of material. Well, okay, we were down a fair amount at the start. I think I can just take this. Knight takes... I would like to play this rook to e7, but queen d1 check is a problem. So could I take the bishop and then play rook e7? And then how does black guard the bishop and the knight? I don't think they can. But it would just be turning into an endgame, wouldn't it? Because he plays queen f6, trades queens, and then I guess we're ahead one pawn, but it feels like there should be something better. A lot of people are picking up the Carol lately. Maybe it's Gotham's fault. Yeah, he's played the Caro-Kann quite a lot in his over the board games, and there's also I will also say there's a number of good courses on the Caro-Kann on Chessable. So yeah, there's lots of Caro support recently for sure. GM Raven is doing a Birds opening speedrun. It's very interesting. That opening has been underrated. Yeah, he's very much in the Birds opening category. Raven Sturt. I've watched some of his episodes for the Birds opening speedrun. It also works really well with his name. I mean, GM Raven playing the bird opening can't really can't get much better marketing than that. Okay, now that I'm looking, no, that's not it either. I was thinking queen takes f8 and then knight f7 check and take the queen, but he can also just take back with the queen, and then we're not going to be ahead. So what is it on this one? What is it here? What is it? Is it knight e6? Knight e6 looks pretty good. Because you're threatening checkmate and you're hitting the rook. Maybe it's knight e6. It's hard to guard the g7. It's hard to guard the g7 bishop. It does say rook takes a8, then check. It says this is also winning due to the fork on f7. I guess the idea is that if queen did f8, we can just take on d7, right? Okay, so it's rook e8, take on f7, and then knight e6. And that's the way to go here. All right, this very much feels like a bishop takes e6 idea. Or d5. d5 also looks very strong. d5 might just be better. If you take on e6, there is bishop takes f3, which is kind of annoying. I think it's d5. And then I think you take this bishop, and then black just loses a piece, as far as I can tell. You could also take on d5. Actually, hold on. Let me just be precise here. I think you might take on d5 first. Because if you take on e7, they can take on c3 and hit our queen, which is kind of annoying. Even there, though, we would win a piece anyways, right? B takes c3, they take our bishop, we take the knight. But it might be even more precise to capture this knight first. I think they both win, though. I think both of these moves win. Even bishop takes d5 should... Bishop takes may not win, but I think both of these win. I think we can do knight takes or bishop takes e7. I think knight takes wins more material. Let me put it that way. So I'm going to go with that. And then I take this. It does say bishop takes e7 works, but it says do not play bishop takes d5 because now knight takes c3 is good for black. I just want to check the evaluation here real quick. I'm pretty sure knight takes d5. Yeah, it says bishop takes works, but the move I was worried about was knight takes c3, pawn takes, queen takes, take here. I guess they can do something like this. White is still winning, but it's a bishop versus two pawns rather than being up like a piece versus one pawn, which would be the case if we do this version of things. Here we're ahead of knight for only one pawn rather than two pawns, which is just a better way to do things. Okay, very good. Let's keep going. Rook takes. If rook takes, check, block, take, trade everything, fork, take the rook. That's great for us. If bishop takes, check, king f8, bishop g7 check, king g8, bishop h6, king here, knight f7, and rook g7 mate. That's a very pretty checkmate. Okay, this one's a little less interesting in my opinion. You take here, you take g7. I guess I would take with the rook, but should I just take this way? I think, actually, no, I'm going to take with the bishop. And then do all of this. Check and mate. It does say bishop takes, check, 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 checkmate. Okay, so we got that one right. Very good. What's going on here? Okay, first things first, I think black is doing pretty well regardless of what they play. It is 2 minor pieces for a rook, but our king is exposed, so we definitely should be precise. Maybe it's knight to e4, because that... Yeah, knight e4 looks pretty good, I think. The rook can't take because it's pinned. The queen has no check on f6 anymore. We're threatening queen takes e3 check. I think after knight e4, white has to play rook e1 to guard the pawn. But then what do we do there? Knight e4, rook e1. Knight g5 doesn't work because there's queen to f6 check. So that doesn't work. Maybe we just play... No. Bishop takes, there's check, and win our queen, so that's bad. Maybe like, no, bishop h6 doesn't work either. Maybe, I guess, the knight takes c5, and then we just attack the rook that's pinned. Doesn't feel super decisive. It feels like there could be something better, but it looks pretty good. You pick up an extra pawn, 2 minor pieces for the rook. I'm going to go with this. Oh, h4. Okay, well, that's not what I would have thought. I guess I just take the pawn then. I don't really see why I would not take the pawn. It says rook e1, knight g5, but what about queen f6? Oh, wait, queen f6, we have bishop g7, and then we take the queen. Okay, fair enough. So bishop, knight g5 is the best move. I wonder how bad knight takes c5 is, though. Knight takes c5 is also like -3.5 or -3 or something. But knight g5, and then bishop g7, and we are up the exchange there. Okay, very good. About the speedrun, you could switch openings every 500 points. For example, 500 to 1000 e4, 1000 to 1500 d4. I've thought about doing a different version of switching the openings around. I'm not sure how that version of things would work, the one that you're recommending, because I'd feel like people who are, like, let's say you get I don't know, a 900 rated player who's watching the speedrun, and they're happy about seeing e4 in their rating range, and then maybe they improve a little bit and they get to like 1000 or 1100 rated, and now there's no more speedrun for e4, so they kind of feel a little bit, they could feel a little bit lost there. You know, why did he stop at 1000? Why didn't he keep going? That could be kind of the downside for that specific way of doing things. But I have thought of a different way of doing things that could be good. Rather than, I think this one's rook takes h6 and then queen e3, by the way. Break the pin, and then we hit the bishop, and knight f7 check's a big problem. I think rather than switching the full-blown opening every 500 points, I think if I was to do... hey, Chess Tape, nice to see you. I think if I was to do a speedrun on a different opening, I might take the opening and play multiple variations of it, is the way I would do things. Like, let's say I'm playing the Caro-Kann, right, just as an example, and I'm playing the Caro-Kann, rather than just playing one way of the Caro-Kann against, let's say, the advanced variation every game in the speedrun, or playing one way of the Caro-Kann against the classical variation, I was thinking about maybe doing like almost like Caro-Kann roulette or opening roulette, where I kind of somehow randomize or kind of just cycle through different variations of specific openings. So what I mean by that is, like, against, like, our opponent plays e4, we play the Caro-Kann, they play d4, d5, they play e5 for the advanced variation. In one game, I play c5. In a different game, I play bishop f5. I would maybe like go back and forth between different ways of playing certain variations. That way you kind of cover the whole Caro-Kann approach, rather than every game I'm playing c5, but what about the people who like bishop f5? Just, you know, in a case like that. I thought about that approach, which I'm not 100% on that one either, but it's an interesting option. Please give me chess tips. I've got a YouTube channel with lots of speedrun games if you want to check those out, Chess Tape. That will have lots of tips in them. In terms of generic tips, make sure that you're always thinking about your opponent's moves. Make sure you're always thinking about your tactics and check the forcing move possibilities in every position. I mean, generic chess tips are a dime a dozen. Lots of tips you can find online. Okay, our knight's hit. I want to play rook e2 and take g3, but I don't think it wins. I think they just take and then move the king, and we kind of run out of juice there. Knight c2 is possible, and you know, to pull the queen away, but again, I'm not sure if we get enough of an attack. Knight to d3, they just take. You think people love speedruns in general. Once you end one, you can start a different one, and people are still going to watch it. Yeah, no, I think that's the case for sure. People are all about speedruns, no doubt about it. I've also just thought about doing a generic speedrun. Generic sounds kind of bad, but a generic speedrun where I just start off at, I don't know, 500 or something like that, and I just play, maybe not a specific opening every game, but I just play like lots of different openings as the speedrun goes on. So like one game I'll play the Sicilian, one game I'll play the Caro-Kann, one game I'll play something else, rather than it being like a specific opening themed speedrun. So I don't know. Again, I'm kind of toying with different approaches. I'm not sure which is best or which one I should go for specifically. The more I'm looking at it, I actually like f4. Or maybe it is knight to d3, rook takes d3, and then f4, because we threaten to take on g3 with check, and we threaten the rook at the same time. That looks pretty good. Could also do a blitz one. Yeah, a blitz speedrun I've also thought about. Okay, which of these do I do first? I'm getting the feeling it's one of these two, but which is first? I think it's f4 first. Because if I go knight to d3, rook takes, then f4, white can move the queen away somewhere maybe, keep the rook safe, and even that should be winning though, right? That should still be winning. Oh, wait, but he can play g4. That should still be good too though, hold on. It might be the case that both of these work, I'm not sure. I think it's knight d3 first. And then, yeah, so he is going to be able to take my rook, or my knight, but I can play rook e2 and then take the f3 pawn. And then, yeah, so this is what I was looking at. It says f4, yeah, so f4 then g4 first is less precise. Because now if we go knight d3, they can just move the queen away. So you want to play knight d3 first. And then if the queen moves away this time, then you take g3. So that's why knight d3 first is better. You don't have the option to move the queen away. I think it's knight c4. You're threatening knight a5. If the knight takes, you win the queen. If the queen takes, you win the rook. And I think it's difficult for white to untangle, or for black to untangle here. Like here I can take. If the rook takes, I check on a8 and I win the rook in the corner. I think I can just move the knight away here, right? Just move away. Hey, Mohan. Nice to see you again. Yeah, in terms of the speedrun options, I'll I'll probably just make like a community post on YouTube at some point just to ask for some feedback from subscribers. So if you're not already subscribed, you might want to subscribe and so that you can see that at some point. I don't think you have to be subscribed to see it, but I think you are more likely to see the post if you're subscribed, I guess. I'm not entirely sure on the way that the algorithm for the community posts work, but I think that that's maybe the case. Do I go bishop takes first or knight f5 first? Because take, check, oops, sorry, pawn takes, rook takes, knight takes. I guess black has just won a bishop, knight, rook for a queen, which doesn't feel fantastic. I do think that's the way to do it, though. I think that's the way to do it. There is also queen g4 check, but I think after king f8, I don't really have enough of an attack. Hold on. Check takes, take. It's a rook and 2 pieces for the queen, which does not feel fantastic. Oh, wait, I have queen e2 at the end there. Queen e2 forks the knight on c4 and the knight on e7. I think that's the key. Yeah, queen e2 is an important move here. I think if you don't have queen e2, then I don't think white is better. Yeah, queen e2 you have to see here at the tail end of the combination. Anything else we play, we are worse off, actually. But queen e2 forks both knights at the same time. Do I plan on doing in-game videos? Yeah, at some point. I plan on doing lots more videos as time goes on. In-game videos, other speedrun stuff, more, let's say, you know, tactic or calculation videos, positional videos, other opening videos. Yeah. I don't have any in-game videos in the works at the exact moment, but definitely something I want to do at some point. What do we do here? Going to assume taking the rook is not the best move. Maybe there's like knight takes f3 check first or something, but let's see. We could play rook takes g7 and then take the rook, but then I feel like we're running out of steam. We also are down a piece for kind of no reason, I think. Let's see. Hold on, I think I see it. So queen b1 check. Black has to block with something. But no matter what they block with, so queen b1, f5 for instance, then I play rook takes g7 check, king takes, bishop takes h6 check, and then I win the queen. If the knight blocks on f5, I think it's the exact same idea. Rook takes g7, bishop takes h6. This is a really nice tactic, and assuming that Shirov found this in a blindfold game, that's crazy. This is really nice for a blindfold game, especially. Yeah, black foresaw, king takes, bishop. He foresaw this and wins the game. Am I also on Twitch? I do have a Twitch account, but I have not streamed on it in like years and years and years. I think the last time I streamed on it was probably in like 2016 or 17 or something. So I'm on there, but not doing anything on there. Let's put it that way. I'm focusing a bit more on the YouTube side of things since I have, you know, somewhat of an audience on here already. You might not think it by the viewership, but I'm happy for everybody that's here, and I've been enjoying making videos for YouTube over the past, I started making videos like 9 years ago, but I've been taking it more seriously over the past, what, 4 months or so? 5 months? Maybe 4 or 5 months. Feels like bishop takes g7, but I think we can take h7 first. And then check and take, and I think black just gets themselves mated here. I think this is a pretty classic like double bishop sacrifice idea. Yeah, king moves, bishop takes g7, and this is just game over. It does say classic double bishop sacrifice. Okay. Rook h8, king moves. I don't see a follow-up right away. Let's see. Black is maybe threatening queen takes h7 to get 2 rooks for the queen. I don't know if that's a big deal, but it's at least an idea that we have to work around. It could be bishop c. It could just be bishop c5 right now. If the bishop takes, then we mate on g7. The pawn is pinned. If queen takes h7, we take, and then we eventually win the bishop. If black throws in a check, we move. There's no more checks. And then we're threatening rook h8, rook takes f8 would be checkmate. So I think it might just be bishop c5. Yeah, it says if black checks and tries to take the pawn, we just check and checkmate. In the game, black played rook e7, but white just took the exchange and white won the game. Okay, good. Knight takes g3 check. Wins at least a pawn. That looks pretty good. Oh, don't even need to take that. I don't think taking there is bad, but yeah, I think we just go back. Oh, interesting. Apparently, yeah, in the game, black did take on e3, and black is better, but somehow white won this game. How did white win this game? Oh, it's a blitz game. Okay. I was going to say white's down a pawn with like very, very little compensation. But in a blitz game, anything can happen. Okay. We are up the exchange already, which is good. This knight's almost trapped. Queen to b6. And the knight has nowhere to go, but there is rook takes here. I think we can take on g3, though. If the queen takes, we get the knight. And if the pawn takes, then we have queen to b6 and we take the knight. So I think this picks up a pawn. Okay, good. We were already up the exchange anyway, so that was good for us. Knight takes f5, and then take on d3. Or knight takes f5, then take on g7, then check on g4. That looks pretty crushing. Take on g7. If you go queen g4 first, there's rook f7. So you take this, check. And then, yeah, you have knight to e4 check, or bishop d4 check. Like, lots of moves are good here. And, yeah, bishop d4 is a mate threat. Queen d4 is a mate threat. Queen takes f5 is a mate threat. White is completely winning. Okay. Bishop check, king takes, take e6, and I think black is just getting crushed. Queen h6 right away, there's queen f8. But I think if we take e6 first, if the queen takes, then queen h6, black has to give the queen up to stop checkmate. And if the pawn takes, then queen h6, and then there's f7 check, or f7 check first might also work. I think we take the bishop. So I think if we go f7, the king moves up the board. But I think if you go queen h6 first, black is losing. Yeah, queen takes g6 is a big threat, f7 is a big threat, queen g7 is a threat. Black is done for there. Let's see. This bishop is protecting g7, which is kind of annoying. I think we can just take the pawn, though. And then if the bishop takes back, then bishop h6. Rook check, bishop blocks, and there's not much black can do to stop queen takes g7. Bishop c3, there's f6, so bishop h6 looks better. And that's game over. Let's see. If my bishop was gone, knight f4 would be a big check. Can I take here? If queen takes, knight f4, and then I take back, and I'm not actually up a piece. I'm actually down a piece right now, so winning one piece is not necessarily crushing. Oh, I wouldn't win one piece. I would get checkmate. I can take on f7 after that, actually. Okay, yeah, so I think it is bishop takes. If they take my queen, knight f4 check, king f5, rook takes f7, inevitably mates. If they take back with the knight to keep the queen protected, then I think I can do... I was looking at rook e7 check. King takes my knight, rook takes e5 with check, and then I think I win the queen on d3 pretty soon. So I think I do this. Okay, and this one was... Oh, sorry, I can just take the knight. I forgot the king could move, but you still win a piece. A little surprised it says the critical test. I think knight takes e5 is also worth considering for black, but I can definitely understand that this would win pretty easily. Yeah, okay, sorry, you have knight f4 and then you win the queen. I was trying to make life way too fancy. I was going for stuff like this, which is also winning. You know, this wins the queen. This also wins the queen on rook d5 check or rook e4. Yeah, lots of ways win. Bishop takes e5 is a good start, though. I think this is knight f6 check, pawn takes, and then I think black just has a hard time dealing with bishop e4 and queen h6, queen g5. I think the pieces are just way too far away from the king's side. Here I think bishop e4 and threatening mate is unstoppable. Okay. Feels like rook takes b2 is in the air. And then bishop a3 check. But then king a1. So maybe it's take, queen a3, but then again, king a1 or b1. I don't think we want to take the rook. I don't think it's bad, because we are up the exchange there. But I feel like we kind of run out of an attack that and the rook is also pinned, so it's not like we need to rush to take this anyways. It's a bit annoying that this bishop's in the way, because I would love to bring the other rook to the b8 square. Could go rook to b4 and pile up on the pinned rook, but I guess he can just move the queen away, and then I mean we can still take everything and win the exchange, but feels like there should be something more decisive. Some kind of rook takes b2, bishop a3, queen a3, maybe queen b6. Queen b6, there's knight a4 though, which doesn't look great. Moving this bishop feels slow, but could also work out, maybe? White's not really threatening anything. And again, we can always take the rook whenever we want, so... I don't know if the sacrifices work right away, is what I'm trying to figure out. I don't think they do. Am I missing some kind of e5? Like maybe e5 is useful at some point, but I'm not seeing the exact follow-up afterwards. This is kind of a cop-out answer, but I feel like in a game I'll just develop the bishop and then involve the rook soon, and I think white's in big trouble, but I'm not seeing a knockout blow here. And Kasparov, given the player, he would definitely see the knockout blow. But Dalton Perrine is not seeing the knockout blow. So what do we do here? Okay, I'm going to play bishop d7. I don't necessarily... I don't know. My guess is there's some rook takes b2, bishop a3, queen a3 thing, but I'm not seeing the not... Hold on, so let's just check it again. So I take, he takes. If I check with the bishop, the king runs away. And then if I go queen b6, there's like rook b1, and I don't see anything there. If I check with the bishop, the king runs, and I don't see a follow-up. If I check with the queen, I think once again the king runs, and I don't see a follow-up there either. So I'm going to go bishop d7. In a game, I would play bishop d7. For the sake of trying to see if this is the correct answer, I think I would take on b2. Bishop a3 I don't think works, because after pawn takes, queen takes, king d2, there's no more attack. That's okay. At least it's good to know that rook takes b2 is not the answer. So what is the move then? Is it rook b4? Queen f4. Maybe it is rook b4 and just trade everything? Nope, that's not it either. Okay, not really so sure on this one. e5. E5 is the only... Okay. Queen to b4. Interesting. You threaten b2. Huh. I understand. Okay, so rook takes b4, there's bishop takes e3 check, and then take the queen. But then, yeah, what's the follow-up here? Bishop takes d4, queen takes d4? I'm not seeing why this is some big improvement. Queen a3 check, king, I don't know, b1? Is it e5 here? Oh, maybe e5 here, and if queen takes c3. That's the idea. That's a tough one. Okay. I did not have this queen b4 move on my radar whatsoever, I will say. Is this the only winning move? Sorry, need to do that again. Wow, it is. I mean, okay, other moves black has an advantage, like rook b4. Black should be at least somewhat better because they'll be up the exchange. I thought bishop d7. I'm going to guess this is not great. Apparently after h5, white's still maybe even a little bit better in kicking here. Okay, queen b4. Yeah, this one was not on my radar whatsoever. And then you have to follow it up with e5, and then you win the knight on c3. Okay, very, very nice. That was a tough one. I had no clue on that one, quite honestly. Queen takes b2, king takes b2, rook d2. If the king goes in the corner, you check with the rook, then with the bishop, then with the pawn, and you promote. If the king goes to c1, if the king goes to c1, that's trickier. Rook check, king d1. You can't push the pawn without losing the rook. Hold on. Take, check, king c1. White is threatening rook to d1 right now, so we do have to act pretty quickly with whatever we do. Take, check, king c1. Maybe rook a2 and try to go for b2 or something, but I don't think it's working. I don't think it's working to take on b2 right away. But if you're not taking on b2, then what are you doing? What are you doing if you don't take on b2? I mean, first of all, black's up a pawn. Black can play just about anything here and be better, I think. But it is... White's not really threatening to take c4 because they would lose their rook, but they are threatening rook d1. So what do we do about that? I could play queen to c2, just trying to play rook to d2, but white will play rook to c1 to hit the queen. I back up. I mean, I'm better there for sure. I'm up a pawn. I'm better for sure, no question. I don't think taking works right away because of king c1. Do you just slow play it? Maybe you play rook c2 check, king d1, bishop f5, threatening b2, and then you just do that. But then you can sacrifice the queen, take the pawn on c4, and I don't think we have enough. Yeah, no, that's not working. So I don't think it's taking on b2, but if you're not taking on b2, what are you doing? Maybe it's queen to c2, I don't know. Worth a shot. I don't think it's bishop f5 because of rook d1. Okay, I don't think this is the answer. Okay, at least it's good to know that queen takes b2 is not correct. Okay, there's no other really, like, I don't think I'm checking on the back rank and giving the queen up. I'm not capturing either of these. I don't think I'm taking on c3. So then what is it? I don't really know. I don't really know what it is. Bishop f5, I think I might have already tried. Queen e3 or something? Maybe? Oh, bishop h3. So it's not a check or a capture, but there is this connection of the rook being defended. If we can pull the queen away from the rook, that makes sense. Okay, but still, white plays queen to g1 or something like that. What's the follow-up there? Does taking on b2 work after that? I don't think that would make a difference. So what if I try it now? Take, check, king c1. Check, king moves, bishop f5. There is no queen takes f5 this time. That is one difference for sure. But he can go queen b6 and give the queen up for the b pawn at the very least. I mean, Here I think, okay, so now it's just rook e8. Rook e8 just pins the bishop. Okay, I'm so focused on this b2 pawn, and I just kind of missed I missed the forest through the trees on this one. Bishop h3, and then rook e8, and white's losing material here. It does say queen to c2, which was what I think I would have maybe thought about in a game. Is still a very big advantage. So again, this is one of those puzzles where maybe this one's not, maybe this one I don't really have a gripe with because bishop h3 is so significantly better. But it is a position where there's lots of moves that are good. Queen c2 is winning, but okay, bishop h3 is even better. And you go for the pin, and white's in big trouble based on the pin. Okay. Rook f3, pawn takes, and then checkmate on g2. See, we go from that one, which I guess is not that hard if you see bishop h3. Bishop h3 is not a hard move to see if you're looking for the right stuff. But we go from that one to this one where I think this one's pretty clear cut. If you don't take the rook, then I take the knight on b3. Okay, I think white gets some checks, but I don't think it's enough. Yeah, black is up a piece and winning. Okay. Our queen is hit, our rook is hit. Queen takes, knight takes, bishop here. If you take the rook, check, block, take on g2, take on f2, you're up a piece. That looks pretty good. Oh, something better. Is it bishop d4 on move 1 then? Might be bishop d4 on move 1. Maybe that's even better. Okay, I can understand this one being better. The game continued. Queen takes e3, then bishop d4. And black is also ahead material here. But it's okay. It is a trickier position. I can understand that. Yeah. I feel like I might have seen this one before. I think it's e4. If rook takes e4, then it's like queen takes c3 or something, and then there's back rank ideas. If the knight takes on e4, you win the rook on e1. If the queen takes on e4, I think once again. No, hold on. The queen taking is moderately annoying. Okay, hold on. So queen takes. Oh, but then I take on c3. And then if queen takes b4, bishop takes, I keep the extra piece. If they take on e7, I trade and take on d3. Okay, so it is e4, but then it's rook takes c3, and then bishop takes b4, and we're up a piece. This feels like f6, and I think white just gets, black just gets absolutely crushed, is my impression. I think you take on g5. And then rook f6, and I would say good luck to black. h4 is coming, and black just gets destroyed here. Yeah. Okay. Black is not threatening checkmate, so that's a good thing. a6, we lose the queen. We take b7, the king takes. That's not great. If we trade queens, I'm not seeing the knockout blow. I guess rook e8 is worth considering. Rook e8, if the rook takes, we win the queen. If black takes our queen, we take back, and then we win a piece because they have to block on the a file. If black checks on h2 and then takes the rook, then a6 looks really strong. I think black has a really hard time dealing with pawn takes b7. I think that works. We lose the rook, but now we can play a6. And we're crashing through here. Okay, pretty happy about that. Rook takes b4, king a3, and then both rooks are hit, which doesn't feel fantastic, but could be worth looking at still. Rook takes c2, the rook takes back. I don't think that does much. Both our rooks are hit on move 1 anyways, so take b4, king a3. Oh, hold on. But then we take on c2. Rook takes b4, king a3, rook takes c2. If rook takes on c2, rook b3 check, king a2, we move the rook somewhere, take on e1, and we're up a bunch of pawns, I think. And anything else, yeah, okay. So my guess is that Anand like played this fork thinking he was winning material, but my assumption is that he missed this rook takes c2 move. Apparently king c1 was played, and okay, I mean a king c1 black's just better. You just move the rook to b8 or something. And yeah, Anand resigned due to rook takes c2, check, check, takes, black's up a couple pawns, and black's winning there. Okay, very good. The queen is stuck protecting e7, so rook to g8 is maybe a move? Queen can't take, obviously. If black checks, we go to h2. I don't think there's any trouble there. But what are we threatening after rook g8? We're not really threatening much. We're threatening like knight g6. But black can maybe even just play rook a7 and cover the e7 square. Could also just be like bishop f6, but then black plays rook a1 to trade rooks, which is kind of annoying. I don't think it's queen b5 check. There's queen d7. I guess you could consider rook g7, but then... I don't think you have enough discovered checks. You can discover check and win the queen, but you did just give the queen up, so you wouldn't be winning anything. Maybe knight h5 is also a move. Knight h5 and then check here. Or even knight to d5, but then pawn takes. I don't think that's it. Knight h5, rook a1 to trade the rooks. But then you can check on f6. And then you've got a bunch of discovered checks, which looks pretty dangerous, I will say. Maybe it's knight h5. Okay, it is knight h5, apparently. Rook g8 prepares to send the knight to g6, but black can bring the rook back, which is what I thought. And apparently here the best move is to still go for this. But white's not really winning anymore. It's queen versus two rooks. So knight h5 is best. Queen goes to c7, then the rook invades. That wasn't the move I was considering. I thought black would play rook a1 to trade the rooks, but maybe there's a maybe there's something here. Check, king moves. Yeah, apparently you just have like a bunch of different discovered checks that are good, and you get the knight to d6, and then white's got a big attack. Okay. Get rid of that. I mean, knight e7 check, black has to take, right? Obviously. Queen takes, the knight takes, so that's not a thing. Rook h3, we're not really threatening anything because h7's protected. Could play bishop d8, threatening knight e7. And there's not much black can do about knight e7. If I go knight e7 right away, rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes, and then, okay, I'm up the exchange. But it feels like, you know, losing my f6 pawn is kind of annoying. I think I play bishop d8, and then there's not anything black can do to stop knight e7. Yeah, now this is a deadly threat. If you try to check right away, you know, you pretty much get this position, and apparently black is better. But bishop d8 first is just crushing, it looks like. Okay. Bishop takes d5. cracking open the position. If pawn takes, queen e3 wins the rook. If queen takes, queen e3 still looks good, or queen a7. I think we crack things open, and then I probably just go queen e3 and have some discovered attack with the bishop or something like that. Maybe I take e6 first. I think queen e3 first. Oh, okay, he gives an alternative. Queen a7, maybe? Queen a7 looks good. Okay, let's take on e6. Okay, I found already one alternative move, but apparently there's something better. Maybe we just retreat the bishop. I don't entirely know. Could just also bring the rook over. Okay, I guess we just bring the rook over. Okay. Okay, this looks like c4, take the knight, fork, win a piece. Okay, if I can move the piece, there we go. This looks like rook e6 and knight f7, but then we're not winning a piece. We're just kind of trading stuff. I could start with d5 maybe. Maybe d5 is the way to go. And then the question is, do I take on e6 now, or do I push c6 first? c6, they take my knight, c7, rook c6. Okay, I don't think that works. Knight to b7, rook moves, then c6. Looks pretty good. Yeah, the pawn just goes through. Okay. Knight f4. If they take my rook, I take e6 and then h6, and I get 2 pieces for the rook. If they don't take, then I feel like I have just lots of moves that are good. Maybe just rook h5 and hit the knight, maybe, or I could trade rooks. I'm up a pawn. I think hitting the knight's better, though. And then I think I'd take a pawn. And then here I can pin. Okay, we've hit 800 puzzles. We're only about an hour and 40 minutes in, though. I'll try to go at least to 2 hours or close to it. Maybe that's what I'll aim for. So let's keep going. F5. If pawn takes, we have e6, which looks good. If bishop takes, we take a7, which looks good. And if rook takes is a little different, I will say. Another option is queen e7. They take us. We check. But then they're going to pick up e5 pretty soon. I feel like we have to do something pretty quickly here. Take g6. King takes. Oh, then we have queen d8, maybe? It's one of these two, I'm pretty sure. I think if black gets to take on f4, they're also going to take on e5. My instinct is saying f5 is the move. And then I think here... Oh, so if the bishop takes, I was taking a7. No, that's not the best move. Interesting. If you take on e6, and then play e7, the rook can defend. So I don't think that's the way to go. Okay, kind of surprising that that taking a7 is not the move. There's not another way to make a fantastic threat. I mean, queen e7, bishop f6. I mean, we can still take on a7, but I mean, what other way do we play to make a threat? f6 check? Maybe it's f6 or something? I'm not really sure. I don't know why queen takes a7 is not good. This is defended, this is defended, this is not defended, but I don't think I can make that work with rook e5. This is not defended, which is why I tried queen e7. Queen c1, there's bishop f4. So why is taking the pawn on a7 not the best move? I really don't know. Queen to b7, keeping the g pawn alive. Queen takes a7, e takes f5. Oh, I guess you're still making the threat of taking e6. And if rook takes a5, you still take on e6. Quiet move that kind of just prevents black's idea of taking f5. Very, very interesting. I thought, yeah, I was thinking rook takes e5, and apparently queen e7. Rook e3 check. This is not winning, I guess. Or maybe it is winning. It should be winning with the passed a pawn, but could be easier said than done. I think it's winning though, pretty sure. Okay. I think we take on d5. And then if the pawn takes on d5, knight to d4 check, king moves. Knight e6 check, and then we take the rook with checkmate or take the queen. There we go. Got the win. If I take the rook, they push the pawn. That's their idea. Oh, but you can still do it anyways, right? I take the rook, they push. I play g4 check. No matter which square the king goes to, I can check and put the rook behind the pawn. So I can take the rook, but then I get to pull the king to the 4th rank where I can check and then put the rook on d4. Yeah, you don't want to check with the pawn first because the king can protect the rook, and that's a big difference. Okay, this looks like rook takes e3, king takes, rook e8 check, king f4, check, and then win the queen. Here you continue with the fork. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. Rook takes, queen takes, you check and take the rook. If king takes, you have rook d6 check. Rook takes d5, queen takes, you fork on e7. If knight takes, you mate. Otherwise, you're just picking up a pawn. See, like I get a sequence of them that are not very hard, and again, there's some that are just like much trickier and much more difficult. If I take d4, I get mated. That's bad, obviously. If I check, the bishop just takes. So they're threatening mate, which is quite a large threat. They're also hitting the bishop and the rook trade. Checking on e8 doesn't really do much for us as far as I can tell. I think black gets 2 pieces for the rook at the very least, but maybe that's fine, maybe, I don't know. There is bishop f5, I guess, but bishop takes. I still can't take on d4. If I check, the queen blocks. I guess I have queen to b8 check or something like that. But then the knight can block, and I'm not really seeing the idea there. Still being threatened with mate on c2 anyways. Rook e8 check, bishop takes, take d4. I mean, I don't think I'm better there. So to one-up a mate in one threat, you have to either check or stop the threat. So rook e8 check, I don't think puts us ahead or anything. Bishop f5 stops the threat, but black just takes the bishop, and then the threat's there once again. And then any other checks on the back rank at that point just get blocked or captured. It might be rook e8 check right here, or bishop f5. Okay, it's apparently bishop f5, and then what? Rook e8 now? Queen b8, there's knight c8. And then they're still threatening mate on c2. Is it queen f2 or something like that? Queen f2 threatens the bishop and guards mate. They play rook takes d1, we take with the king. The bishop is hit, the knight's hit. g6 looks pretty safe though. Then there's rook e7. I don't know. Queen f2? It's not queen f2. Checking here, the knight just blocks. We already know that. If I check with the rook, the queen takes. I take d4. I mean, that's not it either. This is still a mate threat. What are we doing to stop this then? So none of the checks work. Is it like c3 or something? But if it's c3, this is a terrible puzzle, if that's somehow the best move. I mean, how else do we guard the mate? I already tried queen f2. Is it queen g2? I mean, rook e2 or something? I don't know. Rook e2? Oh, wow. Queen to c7. This does defend the mate, and this does make a bunch of big threats. Wow, okay. Take with the king. You need the rook on the open file, and black loses a piece. Wow. Very, very nice. I did not have this queen c7 move on my radar whatsoever. I guess once you see that the queen is stuck protecting e8, then you start thinking about how you can attack the queen, but you have to attack the queen and protect c2. And so maybe that's where you can recognize queen c7 as an idea. So I can understand how you could reach the idea, but it's, I mean, that's still a very tough move to envision. Okay, it is a good puzzle if that's the way to play. No question. I think I take this way and then take this and this. The pawn on d5 is pinned, so this wins me a couple of pawns. b4, bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, pawn takes bishop. We're not actually ahead there, are we? We're up the exchange for now, but you don't want to retreat the rook and get skewered. I don't think you want to do that. I don't think you want to take on d5 and let black equalize the material either. Hey, JC. I don't think it's a5 because they just take your rook. I don't think it's rook takes c5. Pawn takes back, and okay, we can take d5, but they'll eventually get the a4 pawn, and it's pretty equal there. Oh, I guess it is b4, actually. I'm sorry. So b4, they get our rook. We get the bishop hitting their rook. They take here attacking our rook. But then we can play rook a1 or rook d4. I'm not sure if it matters. We hit the bishop, the rook is still hit, and we're going to be up a piece for 2 pawns there. So I think it is b4. Take this. I don't know if it matters which one of these squares we go to. I don't think it matters. I guess I'd go rook a1, and then we're up a piece. It says or rook to d4, so this also works. And then white is ahead a piece for 2 pawns. Okay. This looks like some knight takes f6, and then take h7 and queen h4, queen h3 kind of thing. Okay, I guess the queen is protecting h7, but you can still take there and win the queen, right? Yeah, you just win the queen. Okay. Yeah, we have to act pretty quickly here because black is going to play bishop c5 and bait us if we are slow about it. Doesn't seem easy to bring pieces over, though. Maybe it's rook g4, threatening rook h4. If black plays bishop c5, we have knight e2 attacking the queen and covering this. Black checks, we move. We're threatening rook h4 still. I guess black can play rook g8. And maybe that holds things, because after rook h4, rook g7. So we have to act quicker. It's very annoying that this pawn on h3 is here in some ways. I would like to play rook h3, but if the pawn was back on h2, then black would be threatening back rank mate, so... what are we doing here? What are we doing? Queen h6, rook g8. And then how do we make another threat? I don't see a great move to make another threat there. Rook g6, hoping that they take me, doesn't really threaten anything, and black can play bishop c5. There is rook e3, I guess, but then after bishop c5, again, I don't really see the follow-up. I'm gonna go rook g4, knight e2, not knight e2. Oh, hold on. We're threatening queen takes, rook check, and check. That's what I was missing. If rook g8, we were able to double up. And we're threatening queen takes h7, rook h4 again. And this time, black can't stop the mate on g7 or g8. Okay. So rook g4 is threatening to take on h7 and then checkmate. That was kind of what I was missing in the moment. But it was one of the first moves I thought about, but I was missing that we're actually threatening to take h7. Because it's not very common that that you would be mating here with, like... Usually black would have some escape square on f6, for instance, or f8. But it kind of ends up that f8, f7, and f6 are all covered, so you're threatening to do a checkmate sequence on the g file rather than mating black on the h file, which is a little bit more rare for sure. Okay, I think this is knight takes and then rook e1, and then you're trying to get the queen to the d5 square eventually. If knight e5, would play like f4 or something. Yeah, knight e5, I think you can just play f4. All right. b4, kick the bishop, and then rook takes d6. And then you take g7, and you take d6. Our queen is hit, and if we move the queen, we lose the knight, I think is the idea. Knight takes e5, they take our queen, we take theirs, they take with the rook, and then we're down a piece. That's bad. Knight takes f2, they take our queen, we take on h3, king h1, no more checks, we're down, we're losing. Rook takes f2, they take our queen, no checks, no attack, we're losing. Knight takes e1, they take our queen, knight f3, check, king h1, we're losing. Queen f3, they take our knight, we take h3. Messy, but still down a piece and probably losing. Knight c1, they take our queen, no more checks that are good, we're losing. So what is it here? Queen f3, they take our knight, then rook takes f2. Bishop is pinned, and we're threatening queen g2 mate. Okay, that's the way to go here. Here, here, and then we win the queen. Okay. First instinct is just to play g4 to guard the knight, but I would assume there's something better. There's no great checks. Oh, I guess knight e7 check actually is reasonable. Okay, yeah, I think it's knight e7 check. King moves to f7, I guess. Knight c6 hits the rook. Rook moves, take the knight on d7 with check. King e8. Knight e7, king f7, knight c6, rook c8. Rook takes d7, king e8. Rook is hit, knight's hit. I mean, worst case scenario, you move the rook, like take h7 or something. I think this is pretty clear cut that these are the best moves. And then the question is, do we need to take the knight right away? We could move our knight away and then, I mean, taking the knight just seems like it should be correct. We do have rook e7 check, bishop takes, knight takes, and then we have two pieces for the rook. That's not the answer, but doesn't seem like a bad thought. Rook c7, then knight takes. That's not great. I mean, rook takes h7. No, not that either. Interesting. Oh, knight takes e5. I'm sorry. Knight takes e5. If the bishop takes, then you check and take on e6. Or check on b6, even better. Yeah. Okay. I think you can just double the rooks up, and I think black's just getting mated. I don't think there's a way really to stop the attack. Apparently there is. I'm not sure what it would be. Oh, I think it's bishop g7, pawn takes, and then they take the bishop and the pawn's hanging. Okay, so if this was not attacking the bishop, then I think we would be in good shape. So maybe it's rook takes, pawn takes, oops, sorry, rook takes, pawn takes, then we take h8, and then f7. That's probably what it is. Here I think we can just trade the rooks, and then we have two bishops versus a rook, which looks good. We can also check on h7 first, which is maybe even better. Rook takes e8 also gets the job done, it says, but okay. Looks like knight check, pawn takes, bishop takes, and I think black's just getting themselves mated. Oh, you can check on g4 first. And then if bishop blocks, then you take, and black is getting themselves mated. Okay. So you could take the bishop and then play knight h5, threatening knight f6 check, or you can go knight h5 first and then take the bishop. Both look pretty good. I would guess knight h5 on move 1 is even better. And then here you can take this. Oh, fair enough, actually. Hold on. If you take here, there's pawn takes h5. But then I take on c5. Black should be super... Their king is just super exposed here at this point. Okay. Which puzzle did we start off at? I think it was 750. So we're about 70 puzzles through. We are slowing down a bit, I will say, compared to the other days. I do think the puzzles have gotten a little bit more difficult. Like I was solving at least 100 puzzles, sometimes over 100 puzzles, in about the time it's taking me to solve less puzzles in these past two streams. Let's see, I'm curious, are you thinking in algebraic notation when you're not streaming or communicating, and if so, is it deliberate? So you're saying, like, when I'm just thinking about positions in general, like, do I think bishop g7, knight g6, pawn takes f7, like that kind of thing? Is that the question? I guess my question would be as opposed to what else? Like, how else would you talk about the positions? Pawn to this square, pawn to that square, or pawn takes bishop? I don't know, maybe a combination of both? Hey, how's it going, Ernesto? I mean, when I'm talking about chess positions, yeah, generally speaking, it's going to be with some kind of algebraic notation, even if I'm thinking, just kind of thinking to myself. I guess if I'm thinking to myself, sometimes I'll just say, like, bishop goes there, instead of, like, takes g2 or something, but, yeah, maybe a combination. I'm not sure. Okay, it's going to be one of these moves here. I don't think it's bishop takes h3 because then there's queen g4 that blocks. Knight takes looks reasonable because if king takes, take with the bishop or the queen, and I think white's getting into trouble. But queen here looks pretty straightforward. g3, I take h3. f4, I play queen g3, and there's a bunch of stuff that's being threatened. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, something better, but maybe knight takes g2 is the better option. And then I take h3 with the bishop. Then the king goes to g3, and it's not as clear-cut. Queen takes king g1. There's not a fantastic rook lift. I'm not threatening g6 after rook e6. because the bishop covers. Queen takes, king g1. If I go bishop g4, there's f3, and the queen starts to defend. I think it's bishop takes. And then maybe now I check and then play rook e6. If I can get to h6, that's winning. So, no, not that. Rook e6 first, maybe? Or I can just take the rook. If I take the rook, though, and check, the queen blocks, so that doesn't feel fantastic. Maybe it's rook here first. Yeah, it says threatening queen check, and then mate. Why is queen... I guess if you check right away and then play rook e6, there's queen to g4. I'm guessing that's the idea. So I actually want to see that really fast. Yeah, pretty much. It's always hard to describe thoughts. Some people have more of an active voice than others, I guess. For me, it's a combination of remembering the lines with notation and visuals. You answered it. I was wondering if it was just something like 94 or knight here. Or just silence. I mean, if I'm thinking on my own without being on stream, it's just silence. I'm thinking in my head. But yeah, it's a mixture of both for sure. Like knight here, or knight takes e4. I'm not really sure what makes it in my mind so that I pick one over the other, but yeah, that's the way I would explain it. Yeah, I don't think it, so. It's not checking right away because there's this queen g4 move that defends. Okay, fair enough. I mean, first instinct is just to take the rook. I don't think we take the knight because they check and then take us. I don't think we take the bishop. We can go queen to b7, forking the bishop in the mate, which might be better. It's probably better to do that than just win the exchange. Never mind. Maybe you take and then go there, and then you have back rank checks. All right. Oh, it's just capturing the rook? I mean, and it says equal. Easily winning, right? Question mark. c6. Don't underestimate a pass pawn. Queen takes rook. Oh, there's rook d8 check. Okay, missed that one. I jumped the gun on this one. That's probably the trick that they're wanting you to avoid, is this, you know, oh, queen b7 looks good, but it doesn't work because of this idea. I should have sussed that out. I should have figured that one, because I have a whole course on Chessable that's all about that kind of defensive calculation. Knight h5, rook g3. I think we're just crashing through. Something better. I guess the bishop blocks, right? I mean, you're still completely winning there, though, right? I don't know, queen g5 check first, and then take the h-pawn? Probably you get rid of the h-pawn. No? Queen h6 and knight f6 will also look strong. Rook g3 here and here also works. Interesting. So we move the queen, you're threatening knight f6 mate. You eventually get it. Okay. Feels like rook takes c7, queen a7, and then I think black is just in big trouble. I'm not sure if you throw in the capture on d7 first. I feel like you probably don't, because the queen takes. Take. You also have queen a5 check first. Or d6 check. I think it's rook takes c7. Oh, it's not. Okay. My fault. Is it d6 first? Might be d6 to block off the rook. Okay. Probably need to pause after this because I can tell I'm kind of just throwing moves out there. There is knight takes e5. But then queen takes hits this rook, which is annoying. d6 opens up the attack on the knight, but I guess black just takes with the pawn. If we take here, queen takes. I wasn't sure what to do after that. maybe some kind of rook takes. So if this bishop was gone, we would have rook takes b7, then rook takes c7, then queen takes a7 and d6, and black would be done for. So we need this bishop to disappear. Bishop takes, but the problem is with queen takes, black defends. I actually just want the bishop off the board, and then rook takes b7 is checkmating. How do we get the bishop off the board in a way that doesn't have black help with some defensive move? Ugh. Maybe bishop a6? But then there's b6. Bishop c6? Then I guess they just take the bishop. What is the answer here? This type of position is the bane of my rapid games. I get into something like this, been way too long looking for checkmate, get low on time, blunder, rook. No, I absolutely understand what you're saying. This is kind of positions where it feels like there's something good and you're not 100% sure. That is the bane of my existence as well. That's why I would say in that regard, like, improving calculation is obviously important. But then you also kind of, especially in a rapid game, you just have to be practical at some point and just understand, like, okay, I might not be playing the best move, but I got to make something on the board happen. As long as it's not a bad move, I'm probably going to be, you know, okay. It's not always easy to accept the practicality, though, I will say. All right. Okay, the knight takes is kind of a cop-out answer. I guess if the queen took, though, they have to worry about the knight on e5 eventually. So I think this was what I said, though. Take, check, d6. And the only way to stop mate on c7 is to take the pawn, but then knight takes d6 is still mate. Let's see. Rook takes d7 can be met by knight takes e5 and white wins. If black tries to play queen takes d7, apparently you can just play a bit of a slow move and black's in big trouble. You're threatening to take b7 and you're threatening the knight. Okay. So that's the reason that works out well for white, or what works out well for black. This looks like bishop h3 and then you take g2 because the f3 square needs to be protected. I don't really care about this pawn in comparison. All right. Knight f5 check, king moves, I take this, and then I'm just up a piece, right? Oh, I'm so sorry. Of course he can move the king to g6. I can take on g7, check, and take the knight, and then I'm up a pawn. Or maybe I'm up 2 pawns there. Yeah, and then we fork on e7 next. Knight e4, pawn takes. We pin the queen, and black's just getting crushed there. If you don't take the knight, you're still allowing me to get to the g5 square eventually. c6, and then eventually a fork on e7. Here you have c7, and then you can take this. No. You can also make a queen, which is even better. c6, takes c6, make a fork, take the rook on a8 eventually. If bishop takes b4, I take on d7, and then I hit the rook on c8. And otherwise I'm picking up material. Queen to c8 would pin the bishop, but then b7 makes the fork. Here I think we just take the rook, and we're up the exchange. Let's see. Feels like lots of moves should be pretty good, but let's be precise. We're down 2 pawns, but our piece activity is great. Bishop's pinned. King is weak. Our king is also somewhat weak too, I will say. Queen to c2 or d3 could be a slight issue for us. Queen to b4 check is an idea, but the rook covers it. I think it... White can't castle. If white castles, rook g8 and queen h3 is just checkmate, so that's not a concern. Queen to c2 or d3, though, is a slight concern, I will say. We can always solve that with rook takes b1 check, but it's at least something to keep on our radar. Bishop g7, and the rook is kind of lost because if it moves away from the b file, we take the bishop, and if it moves to, you know, we have all the b file squares covered. So bishop b2 looks, or bishop g7 looks pretty good. I don't know. I don't think bishop g7 is the best move, but it looks like a decent one. It's not the best. Bishop g7, maybe there was some queen c2, queen d3 thing. That could still be annoying. If this knight was gone, we would have queen e4, forking the rook and the bishop, since the bishop's been. If this rook was gone, we'd have this. It's not terribly easy to attack these, though. Like, you could go queen e7, I guess, but feels like a very tame threat. White can just retreat the knight. Bishop takes e3, there's queen takes e3, and white's threatening mate on h6. That doesn't feel fantastic. Rook takes, queen takes. I don't see the follow-up there. Bishop g4, maybe? But bishop g4, white just goes queen c2 or queen d3, and I don't think that's leading to a whole lot for us. These two moves are very, very annoying, I will say. There's no great checks. I don't think we give up the exchange. Giving up the exchange is not a terrible idea because it eliminates these queen c2, queen d3 ideas, but I'm not really seeing a way to attack multiple things afterwards. At least not in a safe way, as far as I can tell. Okay, I'm a little lost on this one. I think, again, in a game I go bishop g7, but probably white goes queen c2 or d3, and I'm actually not super happy about that. I am not so sure on this one. Okay, so now I'm thinking bishop g4, queen c2, give up the exchange, and then take e3. And, I don't know, maybe that's good? Oops, that was a mouse slip. Okay, it's not bishop g4 anyways. I don't know. I'm at a bit of a loss on this one. I'm just spitballing moves. Bishop a2. Not on my radar. Attacking a pinned piece makes a lot of sense. Trying to eliminate the bishop on b2 or b1 makes a lot of sense. Okay, yeah, if rook takes a2, you take on b1, and then you win the rook, and anything else, if they castle, you know, they get mated pretty much. King to d2, you play rook takes f2. Okay, bishop a2 looks quite good. they castle... If they castle, the bishop comes back to h5. I mean, okay, I don't think that's anybody's, like... I don't think you're playing bishop a2 and then coming back, generally speaking, but... okay. Bishop a2 is best, but, I mean, there's lots of moves that are good. I wonder if my bishop g7 was good. This might not be good because of queen d3, though. Or because of queen c2, sorry. Yeah, queen c2, and then apparently bishop g1 is the way to go. Okay, I can understand this not being as good. Bishop a2, castles, queen takes h3 is what I would lean towards myself, and then rook to g8 is a huge threat. White's in big trouble. You get rid of that, and this is killer. Okay, let's do 2 more just to round out at 830, and then I think I'll pause for the day at that point. This one looks like knight takes d6, and then if they take, you mate, and otherwise you're picking up a pawn. You get that previous one where bishop a2 is just such a hard move, at least for me to consider, and then you get the next puzzle that you know that can be solved in like a couple seconds. This is the same way: eliminate the bishop, check, and then I guess there is king h8, but then rook f7. There's no way to stop bishop g7. Yeah, king h8, rook f7, and then bishop g7. See, we get a super difficult one, at least to me. I don't know if maybe bishop a2 is easier to other people. We get a super difficult one to me, and then the next 2 are just solved in like just a second or 2. So kind of feels like the difficulty level's all over the place a little bit. But anyways, though, I think we'll pause for today. We got through an additional, I guess, 80 puzzles or so. 2 days ago, we only got through 50. So we did up it a little bit more today, got through 80. We're at 830. I think there's a 298 puzzles left. I think it's 1,128 puzzles, so just a little bit under 300 puzzles remaining. Hopefully we'll finish that up by the end of next week at the very least, and then we'll go from there. So I will be back again tomorrow for the next set of puzzles that we'll work on. That's going to be again at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Thanks for those of you who hung out today and participated. We were here for about 2.5 hours, or maybe a little bit under, somewhere close to that, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Anyways, though, that'll do it for me. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day. I'll see you again tomorrow at 10 a.m., and I will be back. See you then. Bye-bye.